All right, so I've got my Dallas jersey on. I'm getting ready to do the live stream pretty quick here for NHL 20, right? But there's other news going on, so I wanted to wait until just before I was going to get that going before doing another news video. And I've added a couple of things at the bottom, going through my Twitter feed, right? So Nils Hoglander has signed his entry level contract with the Canucks. Left winger, of course, he's famous for his pretty goals. So Svechnikov and Hoglander can have a competition at an All Star game at some point, I would guess. Canuck fans are going to be very excited. It's 3 years. He's the number 40 pick from 2019. He was seen as a steal at that draft and could very well be a steal of that draft as well. And I'm saying a steal, not the steal, because I think the Capitals did pretty well in the first round. Capitals, it's Capital. The Flyers signed Linus Sandin, his entry-level contract, right winger, 23 years of age. It's a one-year deal. And yes, he is the older brother to Rasmus Sandin of the Leafs. Kind of surprised the Leafs didn't sign him, to be honest, but, you know, not every team cares as much about bloodlines. So Philadelphia picks up a depth forward there. Theodor Lundstrom signs an entry-level contract with the Oilers, defenseman. This was seen as coming, as was the Calgary one underneath. 25 years of age, one-year deal, likely, entry-level contract, probably 900 grand, maybe 800 grand. And right now on Cap Friendly, they're all showing as $925,000 contracts. That's the placeholder as the maximum until we find out the actual number. Johannes Kinval has signed his entry-level contract with the Flames. 22 years of age. He was a free agent, 2 years. And apparently he's staying in Sweden next season. So he won't be with the Flames right out of the gate, apparently. That's what they're reporting. He's a defenseman, so Kinval won't come over until next year. And the comment section on Sportsnet is still making a big joke out of the fact that Pettersson, who was signed, was called the Norwegian Gretzky, which a lot of people are now saying, well, Kinval, he must be the Norwegian Paul Coffey. I have to say, sometimes comment sections are somewhat toxic or bad, but sometimes they're really kind of funny. So it depends on the site, depends on the article, and it depends on people's moods. And right now, people's moods are a little bit touchy. But yeah, so 4 teams pick up guys. Also worthy news. This is not hockey news, but this shows that the sports world is trying. The Canadian Football League is asking for help from the Canadian government to help save the season. They're ballparking $30 million, but it could be as high as $120 million in order to have the season. The CFL is very gate-driven to the point where without any kind of fans in attendance, there really isn't any way to play a season, has been the talk. And there's been leaning towards the league not playing this year. And there's some real fear that if the CFL doesn't play games this year, we don't get a CFL anymore. That the CFL could die as is. And you're really losing something out of Canada. I'm saying that as a Canadian who watches NFL and doesn't really watch the CFL, but it would be a shame if something happened to the CFL, because you can't assume that the National Football League would just put a team in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. No. If anything, they might put a team in Toronto and that might be it. So that would be the end of professional football across most of Canada. So here's to hoping they figure something out, because again, there's a lot of jobs, and they talked in their release as well, which I sent out on Twitter too. A lot of people are being affected by this around the CFL world, and they're trying to bring a light to that. Not the athletes on the field, although CFL athletes, in comparison to other professional sports athletes, these guys are not, for the most part, independently wealthy and making a ton of money. They make good money, but they don't make an absolute ton of money. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Because again, if this league were to go under, that's a whole lot of football players and just staff and buildings that are going to be just empty, and people that are just not going to have jobs. And I'll be interested to see what happens there. And then also going through, Detroit has announced they've signed Victor Brattstrom to an entry-level contract, goaltender, 23 years of age. He was drafted in 2018 with the number 160 overall pick. So the Detroit Red Wings add another goaltender to their list of goalies. We'll see if he comes over and plays this year or what he does. But notice these are all entry-level contracts. Entry-level contracts, like I've been saying, They're the easy ones. You can just keep them at below $1 million. They don't break the bank. So Hoglander signing for the Canucks is not a sign that Benning's going to circle back on Trampkin, because Trampkin's probably asking for a little more than your entry-level contract. We'll see what happens. Wyshynski, or shortened to Wish, is reporting and has spoken to Seattle. Seattle apparently is close to a name. They're still going through the legal process. I'm doing this because that's what they said a month ago. So the legal process and going through NHL hoops, I don't know. I don't know. I just, at this point, I think it's kind of funny because we keep hearing, oh, they're going to name the team. Sure they are. Yeah. Sure. We'll all just act surprised when a year from now, the team doesn't have a name and they got guys out on the ice just wearing blank jerseys. There's no logo. There's nothing. And they're having like a name the team contest in 2026. So we'll see what happens with Seattle. They won't even reveal the colors. Give us something. And they are also saying that, you know, with sensitivity to the community, they're waiting. It could take forever. This could really take forever. So the Seattle name is apparently close. Sure it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally a thing. I absolutely 100% believe that we are close to a Seattle name. The Seattle Team 32s coming to the NHL next year, as long as we have an NHL next year. Could be 3 or 4 years from now. Also wanted to throw in at the end, I get this comment every now and then. You're Canadian. Why do you use American spelling? I've used American spelling dating back to when I was in high school. When I was writing novels, and I was using Canadian spelling, and I actually had a teacher tell me, say, you know, if you're going to publish, if you're going to look at that and be an author at some point, American spelling is kind of the accepted way to do it. And so you'd be better off using the American spelling than the Canadian. So I just dropped all the U's and just used American spelling. And I've done that ever since. And with YouTube, I would say, I haven't checked the numbers recently, but normally when I'm looking at the percentage of viewers, there are more views coming in from Americans than from Canadians. So again, I'm you know, catering to and adapting to a market that's dominated by the United States. And when it comes to writing and spelling, American spelling is often the default. Again, for writers and such, it'll often be the American spelling. So that's why I do that. As I people try to correct me on it, like, oh, no, you spelled that wrong. You forgot the U, you're Canadian. No, I didn't forget. I know that the American spelling is the way to go. It's just one of those things. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding spelling. Sure, why not? Not like we have anything going on in the world. So, you know, at least nothing about going out and doing things. We're not doing things right now. It's to the point where my wife and I are like, remember when we did stuff? Remember when we used to go places? Remember when there were people? Those were good times. They'll come back, too. I believe they'll come back. But we'll see the whens and wheres and hows and all that. And the decisions are still in the process of being made. And apparently there's a bidding process going on when it comes to deciding which National Hockey League city would be able to host the NHL when it comes back. New Jersey and New York not being options, LA not being options as well. So there are apparently biddings going on, and they're trying to come up with exactly how. And there's just a lot of moving parts. But when they make their decision, I'll be right here to report it to you fine people. Thanks for your continued support. Do hit like and subscribe, as I always say. And thank you guys so much for helping with the continued growth. I will talk to you again soon. And yes, I know there was an article about me on the Score. The thing that's funny is people saying, there's an article about you on the Score. I know. I did the interview for that one. And I was actually talking to the reporter before he released it. So I talked to him. I actually thought it was coming out a week before it did. But then the NFL draft kind of kicked everything back. So I knew it was coming out. And I didn't make a big thing about it on the channel because that's not how I work. So I didn't even mention it when it came out. And even though I knew it was going live. Because again, he told me. He said it goes live tomorrow. And I'm like, all right, cool. And so again, one thing that's important to me when I'm doing these videos for everybody, and that I'm, you know, and I'm doing the daily thing, is to make sure that I'm as real and as much like I was 4 years ago now, although I'm happy where I wasn't 4 years ago, and to make sure that it still feels genuine and it's still me. the day comes where any of this were to go to my head and I start really thinking about just how many people watch videos of mine, I would maybe clam up. I still get nervous when we go live with live streams. I still get nervous every single time. Every time that we are ready to go live with a live stream, I get nervous. And I get nervous when I'm doing up boards the night before. I sometimes I feel like I'm having a panic attack because I'm like, okay, is this going to do well? How's this one going to do? I don't know. Did I miss something? Did I forget something? And then when I'm looking at the comment section, I'm like, oh, I knew I forgot that. Crap. And then so, there's a lot of that goes on, and it's an internal battle at all times. And it's my determination that I'm going to continue to provide the content in the same manner as I have for years, and to make sure that things feel as normal and relaxed for people watching my channel as they can. And at this time, I deal with this everyday stress. I deal with the everyday the same as everybody else. Right now we're all going through it. We're all dealing with it. We all deal with it in a different manner. And yeah, I'll be here every day. But yeah, so we're going to do the game threes of round 2 and see how the series continue to go, and whether or not the Toronto Maple Leafs can mount a comeback in round 2. But at least they're in round 2 on my EA NHL 20. So for some, that proves that the EA engine doesn't work, and for some, it proves, hey, the Leafs were going to have a breakthrough this year. I think the Leafs breakthrough will happen sooner or later, but that's more of a we'll discuss that in other videos kind of thing. Thanks again for all your support, and I will talk to you again soon.